All right, all right. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Ultimate Punching, the ultimate MMA channel. Today, I've got a amazing good friend of mine. Actually, we've only spoken one time, but you know what? I think a great friendship is brewing. It's JK from Against the Fence channel. These guys have been called the backup in case DC, Joe Rogan, and John Anik are unavailable, because the amount of enthusiasm they have when they host their live streams of different UFC events and things like that, it's akin to hearing some of the reactions of DC and John Anik and Joe Rogan. That's what people on the internet have said. So today we're going to bring you guys a special treat. We're going to be talking about our picks and predictions for the UFC 300 card. And why don't we just hop right in? Is there anything about this card that kind of jumps out at you? What fight are you most excited to see? What fight are you guys most excited to see?
Oh man, it's funny you should mention that. We did just release a video a few hours ago. Actually, I did my top 13 fights, ranked them all based on excitement, and you should probably check that out. But of course, without revealing too much in that video, I've got to say that one of the most exciting fights on the card is going to be Diego Lopez versus Sadiq Youssef. I just think that Diego Lopez, since he came into the UFC, since he signed, he's really won fans over with just how he fights. Really, he's just relentless, and he's very, no, I wouldn't say erratic, but very kind of like chasing for the finish. No matter where he gets put in the fight. And Sadiq, of course, he's been around the game for a while now. He's coming off of a loss against Edson Barbosa. Was tested against Barbosa, fell short. But I think he will end up fighting his best against someone like Lopez. So I think that makes it potential fight of the night.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a really exciting fight. Another one on my list that I think is flying under people's radar a little bit is Bobby Green versus Jim Miller, because I think those guys both have some, wild striking, some crazy exchanges. Bobby Green with his showboating, Jim Miller still in tip-top shape, even though I believe he has the most professional fights under his belt out of anybody in UFC history. So I feel like those two are going to come together and bring some fireworks for fans. But I like your take there on Lopez versus Sodiq. That I feel like that fight is just flying under the radar a little bit. Plus, the guy's hairdo, makes him invincible. Some people have said that if he changes his hair, the aura is going to go away. I don't know if that's true, but
maybe. Let's hope not.
Anyway, so let's start things off. First of all, like every single fight on here has the potential. And by the way, this is just a complaint I have about MMA fans in general. Every fight on this UFC 300 card could be a fight night main event. That's what I see, right? So even though some people have been complaining here and there about different stuff, even the first fight of the night, Davis and Figueiredo, Cody Garbrandt, this fight is, has a main event feel to it, even though it's the first fight of the night, which is kind of what Dana promised. So who do you think comes out on top, and where do you think this fight ends up?
Oh man, to be honest, I've got a bit of a gut feeling with this fight, and I've had it for a number of weeks now. I got a feeling that Cody Garbrandt is going to upset the world in this one. On paper, it should be Davison Figueiredo who gets his hand raised, just because of the recent run he's been on. He's kind of entered the bantamweight division in the right way. He took that kind of matchup against Rob Font, looked impressive, really schooled Font, and I thought that Font was going to give him a tight contest. I really did, but no, Figueiredo passed with flying colours. He should effectively be moving up in the rankings, but he's taken a fight against a former champion and with a lot to lose. And I just think that this is the perfect way for Cody Garbrandt to get back into the rankings and just remind people that he's still very young in this game, even though he was champion many a year ago now. I've actually forgotten, but he's only 32 years old. You know, that's crazy when you think about it. Like
Yeah.
he beat Cruz back in 2016. So you do the math. Like it's madness. And I feel that if he's able to get a win against Figueiredo, then that's just gonna upset things even more in what's already a talent stacked division.
Yeah, I mean, right now, bantamweight is definitely one of the premier divisions with so much going on, so many moving parts, and so much star power. I think that Cody certainly has the potential to get it done. Like he's certainly an underrated, and I think a lot of people wrote him off, especially because of the fact that he did at one point go down to 125 and he got KO'd, and he's essentially facing a guy who was a reigning defending flyweight champion basically until a guy named Brandon Moreno came along and kind of upset that entire trend. And so, Davison Figueiredo was known to have KO power at 125, but we didn't see that KO power at 135. And the question is Cody Garbrandt's chin, back? Is it the same? Is it worse? I don't know where we're at with that. But what we haven't seen is Davison Figueiredo's so-called power translate to 135. So I think I'm going to agree with you. I think Cody Garbrandt is probably going to get the upset, but it wouldn't surprise me at all that if Davison Figueiredo puts his chin to the test either. We're going to see. But really excited for this one.
Yeah, and I think that and then just to add, I think that perhaps maybe Cody Garbrandt's been dealing a lot with mental and health issues over the last few years, and I'm kind of like hoping, I don't know about you, hoping that Cody's kind of fine-tuned some certain areas. He's no longer cutting any corners, and he's being as professional as he can in order to get back onto winning ways or continue his winning run, should I say, but against more tougher competition.
Yeah, definitely. So, I'd love to see an upset here. I think Figueiredo is the favorite. And I would like to see Cody Garbrandt come in and kind of shake things up a little bit. That being said, either way, I'm super pumped to see these two throw down. And like you said, I think I'm going to agree with you. I think Cody Garbrandt's going to come out on top in this one. Nice. All right, what about next? Bobby Green versus Jim Miller. I just spoke about, I think this has the potential to be the fight of the night. How do you see this one going?
Oh, man. I mean, both two experienced vets, right? And like you said at the start of the show, Jim Miller is someone who is fairly old in the game. He's got the most fights on record, but is still showing up and, putting away some up and comers, And I think that Bobby Green is also somebody who's been around for a while. I think Bobby Green's going to really put Jim Miller on blast, I'm afraid. You look at Jim Miller's last performance, Gabriel Benitez, someone who's also similar in age a lot of ways. I think Jesse Butler, I think, was quite a young stud. And then prior to that, you also got Nicholas Motta, Eric Gonzalez, who he TKO'd, went on a bit of a run. And, later on in Jim Miller's career, he was sort of originally known as more of a submission artist, but later on he's been knocking people out, which has been pretty impressive. And I think he can maybe have some success on the feet against Bobby Green, but I think that shoulder shuffle of Green is going to be too much. It's going to be very well defensive, well alert of what Jim Miller's got to throw. And I think maybe we'll get a Bobby Green stoppage in either the second or third round. That's just my early prediction.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. The only sort of caveat to that I'd probably throw in there is he is coming off of a KO loss to Jalen Turner, one that was pretty brutal, right? Like took some shots to the back of the head, late stoppage. A lot of people thought that, and this could impact him going forward. So, if Jim Miller connects, what's going to happen, right? Is Bobby Green going to be able to eat it and keep doing what he does, keep, throwing those punches and sort of piecing him up, as they say, or is it going to be kind of a one and done kind of deal, right? Because we don't know how he's going to react to coming back after what was a pretty brutal KO loss. But I'm with you on this one again. I think that we're going to see Bobby Green come out on top on this one, just because I think he's got a little bit more to give in terms of striking and slightly the more youthful fighter, I would say, than
Yeah.
Jim Miller, but still a great, another great fight. And I can't believe that that Bruce Buffer isn't gonna fulfill Jim Miller's request. He wants to be called Jim effing
No.
Miller, but he's not gonna announce that, unfortunately.
No, broadcasting reasons have led that to be yeah, declined.
Okay, Jessica Andrade and Marina Rodriguez. How do you see this one playing out?
This one's interesting, really, because Jessica Andrade, you know, in 2013, really had a bit of a rough time. She had a rough year. She was trying to get as many fights in as possible. I don't know if it was led to debt or whether she was in some kind of debt or something. But yeah, she had a rough run, but she kind of really re-energized herself in that Mackenzie Dern fight back in November. The losses prior to that against Tatiana Suarez, wrestler, Yan Jinan, technical striker, good with range, and Erin Blanchfield, who's more of a grappler. So a bit of a a handful of unique styles there. Against Marina Rodriguez, you know, it's also somebody who's quite tall, good at utilizing range, and very technical with her strikes. Coming off of a TKO win against Michelle Waterson, but was on a 2-fight losing skid prior to that against Amanda Lemos and Viriana Jandiroba. I've got a feeling maybe we might get a Rodriguez decision in this. I'd imagine, is Andrade the favorite in this?
I haven't really checked, to be honest with you, but I think she's a slight favorite. Let me pull it up.
Yeah, because I mean, if you, I guess, basing off of last performances, I mean, I actually don't really remember the Rodriguez. Was I around for Zia? No, I wasn't around for Zia versus Gamrot fight night, so I would have missed the Rodriguez Gomez fight. But yeah,
I mean, I remember she you know walloped Michelle Waterson, that's for sure.
Yeah,
but yeah, I didn't see. So yeah, I mean, I think I'm with you on that one. I think she's probably going to be able to get a decision together. They do say that Jessica Andrade does hit hard, but I don't think we've ever seen a KO from. Have we seen Rodriguez get KO'd? I don't think we've ever seen that. So.
I think she got TKO'd by Lemos. That was pretty nasty. But Lemos hits pretty hard, so. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Possible that we see an Andrade TKO. Obviously, she got it done against Mackenzie Dern, but that was against Mackenzie Dern, who's still finding her feet with the striking a little bit and is not as quick defensively. So, you know, against a skilled striker in Rodriguez, who's got great footwork and movement herself, I think she's going to be able to kind of outpoint Andrade in this.
Yeah, and just to give you. So yeah, it's dead even actually on the UFC website here. -110, -110. So both are a flip of the coin for what the bettors think is going to happen here. Okay, this one I'm actually super excited for. Jalen Turner versus Renato Moicano. Money Moicano. I really liked his last performance out there, and Jalen Turner, same thing, right? Like that coming in off of a short notice and doing what he did there to Bobby Green. It's a tall order, but the guy has some crazy KO power as well. So who do you think's coming out on top in this one?
Oh, it's true. I think early doors, I want to say a Renato Moicano submission. Has Jalen been submitted before? No, he hasn't. I'd have to see if he's ever or been on the ground or been taken down much in previous fights. Should probably check that out, because that would be an interesting thing to look into heading into this one, is whether or not or how successful people have been in the past in taking him down. Because obviously he's quite tall, very awkward as well, especially in the clinch. In previous fights, Moicano, so slick at taking the back and sinking in the rear naked choke. You can ask Alex Hernandez about that one and several other previous opponents as well. Yeah, looking at this, okay, Gamrot got him down 4 times, but Gamrot's a a heavy wrestler, great chain
Yeah.
wrestler. Jamie Malarkey got Jalen Turner down. That's probably briefly. Brock Weaver, Matt Frivola took him down 4 times. So look, there's been handfuls at times from people who have got good wrestling.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I'm going to go for Moicano submission.
Yeah, I wonder what the stats are there on control time because, from what I've heard, again, this is just what people say, is that Jalen Turner, when he gets taken down, he can get back up. And I mean, especially right now, I think he's got some crazy power, and the judges are really focusing on damage more so now than I would say ever before. So I really think that Jalen Turner has a good chance of getting a knockout. But I don't know if Hanato Moicano has ever been knocked out. I know he got pieced up by RDA a few years ago. I think that was at 170, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he's been TKO'd 3 times. Rafael Fiziev, of course, was one of them. Chen Sun Jung and Jose Aldo. So some studs there, some veterans.
Yeah. So I mean, this is going to be a big test for Turner, certainly, and up a level in competition. But he's been impressive so far, and I think he's gonna get two KOs in a row. Bobby Green, Hanato Moicano. So I'm going with Turner in this one.
All right. Nice.
Prelims. That was the early prelims, folks, and we got some incredible fights. And this is the one that you said is going to be fight of the night here. Sodiq Yusuff versus Diego Lopez. And for everyone watching, Diego Lopez is the favorite, minor favorite, and Sodiq Yusuff is the underdog. Again, minor underdog.
Oof. Oh man. Yeah, this one is so tough to call, man. I think Lopez has got to get the submission win in this one. I'm hoping that Sadiq can do some damage on the feet. I really do, and score big that way. I've got to ride with my boy Sadiq, I'm afraid. On this, I've got to stick with him. I would probably take a decision.
Yeah, that's interesting. You know what? I think I'm gonna ride the Diego Lopez train here. He's training in that gym with Alexa Grasso, and he's kind of got a gym around him that has that sort of winning mentality, winning momentum, and I think he's going to be able to keep that going. I don't know whether or not he's going to be able to submit Sodiq Yusuff. I don't know how often that's happened, but again, a young up and comer. Fresh, got the sort of winning mentality from that gym he's at right now. So I think Diego Lopez is going to get the job done here versus Sodiq Yusuff.
Okay.
Now this is interesting. Then this next one, Holly Holm versus Kayla Harrison. Kayla Harrison is supposed to be the next big thing in the women's, I think it's bantamweight division in terms of, coming in, kicking ass, taking names, that type of thing. But she's facing Holly Holm. Kayla Harrison, I believe, is also a judo silver medalist or gold medalist, some major background in judo and grappling and that sort of thing. So how do you see this one going?
Man. Yeah. I kind of said in a previous video that this fight is the question with this fight is, can Kayla Harrison deal with UFC level competition? That's the ultimate question. Is where does she fit in all of this? Because she had some great wins at the PFL, but the PFL level of competition is completely different to the UFC. She's coming in there against a former champion and someone right at the top of the division off of the bat. But on the flip side, it is somebody who is over 40 years old now and hasn't been looking at her best. We've seen the best of Holly Holm. I think some would probably predict a Holly Holm knockout in this, but you're still thinking about the devastating knockout of Ronda Rousey that she was able to get, but that was so much time ago. We got to take into account
almost 10 years ago.
Exactly, almost 10 years ago, and we got to take into account you're only as best as your last performance, and that performance against Maya Brenner Silva was not the best at all. She's kind of been leaning on this clinch grapple heavy approach lately, and it's kind of weird for me. It's not the Holly Holm that we used to seeing of dancing around the outside, staying light on her feet, and putting people on blast with her kicks. She's been really trying to clinch up with people, and she doesn't want to do that against Kayla Harrison. If she does that against Kayla Harrison, I think Harrison's gonna, turn the tables on her and put her down and threaten submission attempts, because Harrison's going to have the strength advantage in this fight. That's without a doubt. Okay. Questions lie on whether or not she's going to make the weight, of course, but we'll kind of make a better prediction the closer we get to the fight. And of course, after weigh-ins. But at the moment, my head is kind of saying Kayla Harrison by submission, or just a decision where she's kind of, grapple heavy approach, constantly making Holm work out of positions, draining her energy, and just staying busy on the ground, but just not getting any submissions off.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on this one. I mean, there's a reason why the UFC put this fight together. That's the way I am saying. Kayla Harrison, in some way, shape, or form, they had to lure her over from PFL, because from everything I hear, PFL does have a better payout structure for fighters, right? And so maybe Kayla Harrison just has that sort of championship mentality and knows that the UFC is the place to show that you're the best in the world. That could be very well true. But I don't think the UFC looks at this and goes, hey, we're going to put you in against someone who you're absolutely going to get obliterated by in your first fight in the UFC, on the UFC 300 card. I don't think they're going to make that fight if they feel like it's not going to be competitive and that Kayla Harrison doesn't have an advantage. So I think, they probably look at exactly what you said. A lot of the clinch work that Holly Holm has been doing lately, if she tries to do that against Kayla Harrison with I believe it's the judo background, she's going to be in a lot of trouble. So I'm with you on this one. I don't know if she gets a finish, but I do think she'll take her down and dominate her for 3 rounds, lots of takedowns, lots of grappling work, and I think we'll see a Kayla Harrison decision.
Yeah, and I think it's a win-win scenario for the UFC as well. They control the narrative. If Kayla Harrison goes out there and smokes Holly Holm, then she's the next big thing. She's the next big star, and the UFC will run with it. If Holly Holm gets the win, the narrative's just going to be, well, Kayla Harrison wasn't that good after all. And look, this outlines where our level of competition is at compared to the PFL. So, that's
true.
That's my take on it.
That's true. And, even a month ago, it was kind of interesting that I don't know if you remember this narrative. This is a little bit of a tangent, but when they had when the PFL and Bellator were doing their champions fight or whatever, Bellator basically cleared except for the heavyweight fight. But it was funny because as they were merging, the narrative was that all of the fighters now under the PFL Bellator banner could compete with the highest level of guys in the UFC, right? And we saw, essentially old retired UFC fighters in Bellator clean the clocks of the guys at PFL. So this would just continue that narrative that the PFL Bellator are never going to be the competitors to UFC, right? And everybody knows it. So moving on. Calvin Kattar versus Aljamain Sterling. Aljo's making his move up to 145.
Yeah, an exciting move as well. I think he zigged when he should have zagged against Sean O'Malley. It wasn't his night that night, but look, we're still looking at one of the best bantamweights to ever do it. His resume kind of speaks for itself. Prior to that Sean O'Malley fight, the wins against former champions TJ Dillashaw, Henry Cejudo, and of course Peter Yan, which we won the belt off of. Heading into this new division, probably best suits him in terms of frame-wise, because we know that Sterling is quite, or in the past has been quite big bantamweight. Calvin Kattar, though, very slick on the feet, great hands, and really emerged himself after that Max Holloway fight. All right, he's been on tough times recently with the loss against Josh Emmett, although I felt that he beat Emmett in that fight. The one against Arnold Allen was unfortunate because he blew his knee out. So he's recovering from that knee injury, and he's fighting somebody, a former champion in the lowest division. And I think it's going to be a really tough contest. I really do. Part of me wants to side with Aljamain Sterling on this, just because, it's hard to see Kattar beat somebody with the grappling level of Aljamain Sterling, and I think Sterling could either ride out a decision, get the best sort of positions on the ground, threaten submissions, or he'll either get a rear naked choke or or like I said, ride out a decision that way.
Yeah, it's interesting because I definitely think Aljo has the potential to win, and just some of the videos and content that he's made about his build up to 145. You know, he's talking about how he feels much better than he did cutting weight to 145. Like he feels like he has more energy, strength, power, all these different things. So again, whether or not that translates to a victory, I'm not sure. But hearing him talk like that with that level of confidence certainly gives me confidence that he's going to be able to get the job done. Calvin Kattar, he's an interesting guy though, because he seems to come back from adversity and perform his best. Right.
True,
So like
yeah.
after that Max Holloway fight, he was fed to that guy Giga Chikadze, who was supposed to be the next big thing, right? And he starched him. And so he's coming off of a couple of setbacks or whatever. So the guy has that, as they say, dog in him. So it'll just be really interesting. And the odds have it dead even, -112, -108. So again, flip of the coin for who's coming out on top of this one. I'm leaning towards Aljo just because of the fan in me. I like Aljo, but yeah, for me, it really could go either way. I don't know.
Yeah, here's an interesting stat then for you. Let's assume that Aljo's path to victory is, of course, on the ground. There's only been 2 people that in the UFC that have been able to get Calvin Kattar down. According to these stats, anyways, one of them was Zabit Magomedsharipov, and the other one was Chris Fishgold. He beat Chris Fishgold and lost to Zabit. So there you go. That's one to throw in there. How you use that or not in terms of making your own predictions and bets. I'd imagine that Kattar is an underdog in this, so maybe you'd want to, maybe look at those money lines.
Yeah, it's interesting. Really could go either way in my mind. So this one, the featured prelim, and this one is really exciting because of the implications it has. Right now, light heavyweight is just a complete mix of number 1 contenders and title challenges. Like just chaos ensued once John Jones left that left that division. But Yuri Prochazka, Alexander Rakic, who do you think's coming out on this one? And what do you think happens next, depending on who wins?
I got to go with Yuri on this. It's a shame. I do kind of rate Rakic in a lot of ways, but yeah, I just think he's someone against Yuri who's very unpredictable. I think could be a little bit too much of a handful for him. And, I also kind of, in a way, look at this and think I'd hate to be Yuri's next opponent after losing against Alex Periera. So, I got to go with Yuri based on that, really, because the guy is so dedicated. He's so humble and so driven in the craft that is MMA. Of course, he racked up an impressive win streak prior to that loss, and that speaks volumes for Alex Periera. Maybe we get to see a TKO win from Yuri in this one, which would be, of course, a shame. What would next be for Yuri then? Well, bit of a tricky one, really, because, of course, it all depends on the outcome of the main event. If Jamal Hill was to get the win, then surely you want to do that fight that was originally meant to be scheduled, a few years ago. So when I think it was when Yuri had the belt. Yeah, because Yuri beat Glover and Jamal Hill was kind of up and coming. So, yeah, I think that would be your next move. If Alex Periera wins, however, I still think that Yuri would be one fight away from getting a rematch.
Yeah, I agree with you there, and I do think that Yuri is like, so right now Yuri is the underdog, +110. Rakic is the favorite, but I just don't get this one because Rakic, he's been pretty inactive over the last couple of years. I can't remember the last person he fought.
Well, he fought Jan Blachowicz and blew his knee out, so we didn't actually get to see the outcome of that fight.
Right. Yeah. So that was a while ago though.
Yeah.
So he blew his knee out, recovering, inactivity. Yuri's coming off an injury to one fight, but I think one fight's better than none, even if you lose here. So I'd put. I think I'm gonna go with you, Yuri, and I don't know if this is gonna be TKO. I think this goes the distance, and I think we're gonna see Yuri get the decision.
Okay. All right. Yeah, lot of moving pieces towards the end of this night. You got Ankalaev in the mix still as well. I would really like to see Yuri fight Jan Blachowicz down the line as well.
Yeah, that would have been that would be interesting. Yeah, and Yuri, I mean, if that would be a reason for I'm kind of rooting for Alex Periera in the main event, but I honestly I like both guys. If either one of them wins, it's interesting, right? It makes things cool because Jamal Hill is fun. Seeing him lose it on basically everybody on the internet on a daily basis is something that I'm here for sure. And seeing Yuri versus Jamal Hill would be super interesting. And then you do have Ankalaev in that mix, but everybody says that Dana doesn't like that guy, so he's basically going to have to be completely undeniable in order to get that shot. So I think Dana will book anything before Ankalaev gets his shot. So we'll see though. Bo Nickel versus Cody Brundage. This is the most lopsided event of the night.
Bo Nickel next.
Yeah, Bo Nickel next. Exactly.
No, I'm joking.
Minus 1350 favorite, plus 800 for Cody Brundage. I don't know if you saw this. Chael Sonnen did a piece where he basically said that the reason why they're not giving Sean Strickland the title shot, right, is because they're going to essentially, quote unquote, feed Sean Strickland to Bo Nickel after this is all said and done.
Put
him up against sort of real competition, try to launch Bo Nickel into a title shot, something like that. That doesn't necessarily sit right with me, but it was an interesting theory.
I think it's too much of a jump, a while back, you got Alex Periera who received that same jump when he took on Sean Strickland. However, it's a little bit different, I guess, in a lot of ways because of the fact that he had such a decorated kickboxing career prior to MMA. Now, of course, you could also counter argue and say, well, Bo Nickel has been completely dominating people in the wrestling world, which I guess, makes a lot of sense. But I think maybe it's a little bit too soon of a jump. I think you test yourself against Cody Brundage and then give him somebody who's just outside of the rankings. And then before we start looking at these jumps.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I did find that to be an interesting theory. Lightweight battle, Charles Oliveira, the former lightweight champion versus Arman Tsarukyan. This to me is the most interesting fight. Well, second most interesting fight of the night in my mind.
Yeah, I've got to go with Arman Tsarukyan in this. I kind of hope that he gets the nods. He's been developing and growing with every fight especially since that Gamrot loss, or even since the Makhachev loss. In fact, I felt that he beat Gamrot in that fight, close fight. But I think he's ready for a rematch with Islam Makhachev, and I think a fight with Islam, or Islam's toughest test, I believe, is Arman Tsarukyan in this division at the moment. When you look at the top 10, without a doubt, I think stylistically it makes a lot of sense. And I really want to see it again.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I would absolutely love to see this. I feel like Charles Oliveira has had his shot at that title, and he had his shot at the rematch, and he pulled out. And a lot of people, again, I'm going back to what Chael Sonnen says, that Charles Oliveira has repeatedly said he doesn't want to fight Islam Makhachev again. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. But I do think, and it says right here that Arman Tsarukyan is the favorite. And I think he's only like 27, 28 years old. So I think, that youth and is going to be really good for him. And I think it's going to be hard for Charles Oliveira to submit him, right?
Yeah.
Because he does have that wrestling heavy background. He went toe to toe with Islam Makhachev and took it to a decision. He's improved a lot, exactly like you said. And I think he gives Islam his toughest test. And similarly, like the guy does have KO power, and Charles Oliveira gets hit a lot and he gets knocked down a lot. And so the question is, if he gets knocked down, will Arman Tsarukyan follow him to the ground? I think there's a big case for him to do that, because he's managed to and do a lot of things the right way. So I'm with you, Tsarukyan. I'm hoping he makes it through and goes on to fight for the title.
Oof, nice.
All right, Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway, the People's Championship fight.
This one, so I wasn't really excited about it when it got announced, to be honest. I think the Dustin Poirier versus Max Holloway fight still kind of rings clear in our heads a little bit, and still overplays in there, because Poirier really roughed up Max at 155, and I didn't think that Max was ever going to return to this weight class after that. And that's probably at a time where, okay, maybe Max wasn't quite his best, but let's look at where Max is now. Is he any better? Or did he get any better after that Max Dustin Poirier fight? I don't think so. So, and Justin Gaethje, however, continues to prove us. He's been taking out up-and-comers like Rafael Fiziev, who I was really rooting for in that fight, shut him down completely. And I think this is an opportunity for him to do the same here against Max, I'm afraid, in a weight class which I don't think he belongs in.
Yeah, I definitely see that as a distinct possibility. I will throw one thing out there, though. Gaethje is now 35 years old. Max Holloway is only 31, 32 years old. So there is that. I don't know if it applies to the BMF, but there is that statistic that, people don't win belts over the age of 35. Whether that applies to the BMF belt, which is kind of a made-up belt which essentially stands for stand up and strike the entire night. I don't know if that applies, but I do think it would be interesting. And I made a video about this yesterday. Go check it out. By the way, if you've made it this far, subscribe, ladies and gentlemen, to Ultimate Punching and Against the Fence. Yes. What I was saying is that if Max Holloway wins this, he's going to have a tough decision to make on whether or not to challenge Islam Makhachev for the title or go back down to 145 and challenge Ilia Topuria. And I think that fight with Ilia Topuria is a much more winnable fight than Islam Makhachev. And it certainly isn't out of the realm of possibility that Max Holloway wins here. One thing I will say is Max Holloway has had a lot of time to prepare for this, comparatively speaking, to when he fought Poirier. I believe that first fight with Poirier was somewhat short notice, and he went up basically as a 145 pounder, challenging a 155 pounder. But he has put on some size, he has bulked up, put on some weight. That's what everybody's saying. I still think Gaethje is going to get the job done tomorrow night, but I think it's a lot closer than everybody thinks.
I agree. Okay.
Zhang Weili versus Yan Xiaonan. I have no idea how to say this name, so I apologize. But I think that I'll let you say what you think, but I think Weili's gonna retain her title.
Yeah, I do too. She's keeps surprising us, just when you think you've seen her at her best, she comes out there the next one and proves you wrong. She's forever growing as a martial artist, and I think that she's a bit ahead of Yan Xiaonan. I'm a little bit cross with the UFC because I felt like this fight was a perfect fight to take to China. We got it on UFC 300 card. Okay, so be it. But yeah, I think Zhang Weili gets the job done, just mixing up her offense. She's proving that she can wrestle now. So I think she hangs in there and, probably rides out a decision.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm surprised that there are no odds on this one on UFC's website. But, yeah, exactly like you said, I think she's just got way too many weapons and way too many places she can take the fight and do well. I'm not really sure what Yan is known for, what her sort of specialty is, but I don't think there's anything that she can do that Weili can't do better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
I guess maybe might be to do with distance management. I think she's quite good at that, and using her long range weapons. But yeah, I think Whaley's quickness is going to be key in this.
Yeah. Okay, so we're here. We're at the end, the main event: Alex Periera versus Jamal Hill. The odds makers have it Periera as a slight favorite at -155. Jamal Hill as the underdog +130. All right, do you agree? How do you think this one's going to go?
I think this is a close one. I think probably the odds are what they are because Jamal Hill's come off of that Achilles injury, and there has been questions of whether or not he's been rushed back too soon. So that kind of weighs heavy on this bout a little bit. I think I'm hoping Alex Periera gets the job done. But look, Jamal Hill has got some crazy power, and he has proved time and time again that we shouldn't count him out. So if he was to get the walk-off knockout against a vet who's, he's had his fair share of damage in the past, I wouldn't be surprised, But I got to root for Alex Periera, man. I mean, what he's been able to achieve in such a short space of time in the UFC and in MMA altogether. I kind of want to see him go on and just achieve more, really.
Yeah, having the title of the greatest combat sports athlete of all time behind your name is something that would be really interesting and something that Alex Periera certainly has the potential to achieve. But I do agree with you. Jamal Hill is someone that you can't count out because, like, I believe he was the underdog in the Glover Teixeira fight, and he pieced him. Now Teixeira was like 42 at the time, right? But still, Pereira's 36, 37. I think a mixture of exactly what you said, him coming off an injury, the inactivity. I think Alex Periera is gonna be able to capitalize on that. And once again, I just don't know if there's anywhere that Hill can take this fight where he has a clear advantage. Periera seems to be relatively easy to take down, but he is a jiu-jitsu brown belt. We've seen him get back to his feet regularly when he does get taken down. In the striking, Jamal Hill has said he's going to stand with him and knock him out. That's crazy to me if that's his game plan, but anything's possible, right? But on paper, I just think Alex Periera is the better fighter. So we're going to see at UFC 300.
All I'm going to say is I think if Periera gets a submission win, I'm going to go absolute bananas. It's going to be something that nobody would be putting money on. But no. If there was a fight for Alex Periera to kind of showcase his grappling, it could very well be this one. Don't get me wrong, Jamal Hill did very well to survive against Glover in that fight, and we know that Glover is very decorated in that area, but like we said, there is age there, of course, and I think that maybe Alex Periera does need to show new chinks in his armor a little bit to get future contenders a little bit weary, of where the fight can go. So I think that's what Alex Periera should do, really.
Okay. Yeah, but otherwise, any final thoughts on this card? We're just about at the end of time here, but last thing I will say is MMA community, you guys are a bunch of babies for complaining about this, because I like every day it gets closer, I sleep a little bit less because I'm excited for UFC 300. What are your thoughts? Is there anything else that you think that you think about all these matchups?
Look, I mean, all I'm going to say is it's kind of the fans' fault in a way for getting a little bit ahead of themselves with this card. I mean, but rightly so. We kind of wanted a bit of a spectacle with it being such a unique numbered card. We wanted legends to come back. We wanted super fights and this, that, and the other. And when these things kind of build up and these rumors kind of come, then we get a bit excited, and we've kind of really set the bar really high for the UFC. But at the end of the day, now that the week is here, I'm grateful that we've got it. I think if you ask anybody what card comes close to a 10 out of 10, you would probably say this one, you know? So I think we got to be excited about it nonetheless. And I can't wait for it.
Yeah, me too. Well, we're going to wrap it up here. I want to thank you for coming on, and I appreciate your time, and I appreciate the conversation. And guys, check them out against the fence. Like I said at the beginning, these guys are the backup if Joe Rogan, DC, and John Anik can't make it out, because they're just so hyped about every single UFC event, and the excitement they bring as fans is great. So, I just appreciate working, collaborating with you guys.
I appreciate the kind words. I think after you saying that, I think if you were to lock those people in a vault by accident, then yeah, we'll be jumping at the chance to commentate. So yeah.
Okay. Great. Thanks a lot. And in case you didn't know, he's in the UK and I'm in Canada. So we made this happen just for you fans out there.
Absolutely. Stick around, subscribe to the channels, hit the notifications bell, and there's so much more coming your way. So stay tuned.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye.